again, because there is. How many from Malta? From Malta. Anybody from the U.S.? Oh, good. Now, can we turn the lights down? Can we turn the lights down? Ah, perfect. This is the theme. This is the theme of these 2 days. I'm Tom Biggs, I'm from Houston. You know the very first words said from the moon when we landed on the moon? The first words were said, Houston, the eagle has landed, because Houston is the home of NASA. Other words from space, Houston, we have a problem. They did. Several months ago, Houston, we have a problem. The rig is blowing out of the Gulf of Mexico, because that's the home of oil and gas exploration. So that's my little town. I'm from Houston. Now this is John Biggs. We've been friends for a long time, and as you see, he's working. He's working very hard. And he calls me. He says, Tom, how are you? I'm good. How is your golf game? I said, well, I have to work too hard. My game is not so good. He said, well, I have to work hard too, but my game's very good. And we talked, and well, I can't quite putt as well as I'd like. Yeah. He said, oh, by the way, Tom, he said, do you know what youth is? Of course I know what youth is. I've published it. Youth is the capacity to adapt to change. He says, right. Then he says, and do you know the greatest obstruction to progress? I said, of course, I've published that. It's the comfort zone. When you're comfortable doing something, you don't want to hear anything new. But if, on the other hand, you're uncomfortable because you think things can be better, you're therefore prepared to make progress. The greatest obstruction to progress is the comfort zone. Then he says to me, do you like telling a beautiful 40-year-old woman, darling, you're so beautiful, but you're too young for a facelift. Come back and see me in 3 or 4 years. I've done 3,000 facelifts, and I know I've said those words 100 times, or maybe 200 times, and they never came back. They went to somebody else. So I didn't like saying that. He said, Tom, do you like to operate 3 or 4 or 5 hours on a patient doing a facelift? I said, no, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I get so sick and tired of standing here operating. No. He said, do you like to keep your patient in the hospital overnight, maybe 2 nights? No, I like them to be able to go home. He said, do you love having somebody sitting here in your waiting room that looks like that? No, I don't like that. I can't stand that. For 6 weeks every day? No, I hate that. He says, just as you're about to put your lips to your evening cocktail. It's 6 o'clock in Houston, it's 9 o'clock in Spain. You're about to put your lips to a beautiful Bordeaux or a gin and tonic or something. The phone rings and you hear the word hematoma. Do you like that? No, I don't like that at all. I don't like that at all. And I don't like spending the next 3 or 4 hours doing this. And I don't like seeing a patient come into my office at the 3rd day post-op looking like this. It goes on and on. I don't like seeing this 1 day post-op. This beautiful lady I operate on. And I do a new operation that I've been doing for about 6 months, and where I do a full facelift and a full facial resurfacing with a laser and get spectacular results over and over again for about 12 patients. And I do this lady, and she calls me and says, I have a small ulcer on my cheek. I said, whoa, oh, that's bad. My dermatologist is taking care of it. He's putting some ointment on it, and he says it's going to be all right. I said, well, that's good, but you need to come back and see me. The good news is she lived 1,000 miles away. But she did come in to see me 3 weeks post-op and looked like that. How could that happen to me? I've done 3,000 facelifts. I've done this operation so many times. But how could this happen to me? To me. Oh. All right. If you love the long scar that goes all around and comes down the neck, if you love that, or if you love incisions, if you love extensive undermining, if you just love to undermine the entire face, knowing that there are important blood vessels, important nerves, important muscles, important everything. If you just love doing this, and you just keep on doing it because you love doing it so much, if you just love going over there and finding the malar eminence, if you just love this operation, then don't even talk to me anymore. Fine, you keep on doing it. If the patient's husband looks at his watch at 8 o'clock when the operation is starting, and he looks again at 12, where's my patient? And at 3 o'clock, where is she and what's going to happen? If you love your patient's family in the waiting room looking at their watches, watching the hours go by, Javi says to me, I need to talk to you. If you love all those things, no. But if you don't love those things, I want to talk to you. He says, there are some key words that you need to remember. Okay, tell me, Johnny. Silhouette. Silhouette. Silhouette suture. Patrick Schupak. Silhouette suture. You need to know that word. Oh yeah, well tell me more. And you need to remember that youth is the capacity to adapt to change. Oh yeah. Okay. And you also need to be aware. Be aware? What do I need to be aware of? I'll tell you. There's good news. Okay, Javi, what's the good news? The good news is that you can do this operation with a 2-centimeter scar. Oh. You have great patient acceptance. This is silhouette now. Short operating time, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, 20 minutes maybe. Local anesthesia. Outpatient. Minimal possibility of complications. Wow, that fits nicely. That fits nicely. That is the good news. Why did you say be aware? I said, well, be aware because there's some bad news. Well, what's the bad news? Is it very costly? No. Is it difficult to get? No. What's the bad news? Does anybody know what the bad news is? The bad news is it's a 2-centimeter scar. The bad news is that it's great patient acceptance. The bad news is short operating time. The bad news is under local anesthesia. The bad news is you can do it as an outpatient. And the bad news is that it's minimal possibility of complications. Now, why is that bad news? Well, that's bad news because if you don't make this operation available, our dentist will. If you don't know how to do this operation and make this operation available, don't worry. She'll go downstairs and around the corner to the dentist in his office under local anesthesia. Now, I remembered that it took radio to reach 50 million Americans 38 years. It took television 15 years to reach 50 million Americans. It took the internet only 4 years. Only 4 years to reach 50 million Americans. It took the iPod 3 years to reach 50 million Americans. And it took Facebook 2 years to reach 50 million Americans. So why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because the silhouette lift is on its way. And it's going to spread around the world very, very rapidly. because of all those bits of good news that I gave you. So hop aboard the Silhouette lift, and welcome to this morning's session, and welcome to tomorrow, because when you leave here, you're going to be able to do this operation. Now, that's the introduction. Now here comes the good part. Dr. Benedetto.